like to welcome everyone to the conversation where we talk about everything Cowboys. My favorite team, your favorite team, America's team. Here with your host, Coach Marv.
Cowboy Nation, sports fans, uh, uh, friends, family, everybody that's been supportive of Coach Marv, man. We coming in as a Cowboy Nation, and we're gonna talk a little Cowboy stuff, man. Even the season is over. We had a wonderful Super Bowl. I don't know if people like the Super Bowl or not, but I always like the final game when everything's on the line and teams play very hard, even though they may have not looked so crisp. But the play of the physicality of that game and the hitting and the paying attention to details was a really on. Not only did they got a chance to watch the Super Bowl, but I got a chance to make a new memory for old Coach Marv. Coach Marv got a chance to go down to his biggest part of his family, down to Montgomery, Alabama, and what's going on, man? Get a chance to go down to Montgomery, Alabama, and spend a glorious weekend with my family down in Alabama and talk a little football, eat a couple sliders, and drink a few dirty cokes and uh, talk and have a good time watching the Super Bowl and with really none of my family members that was down there, which is a big side of my family. Nobody was really Seattle fans. They had a couple of younger people that were New England fans, but not. I know really, this nobody had a really horse in the race. But we wanted to see a good Super Bowl. We had some 49er fans, some Ram fans, some. Of course, I was there, Cowboy fans. We had, so we had a mixture of fans, but um, it was a wonderful time that we spent watching the Super Bowl. And as I watched the Super Bowl with my family members there, speaking of my father, that's my father's side of the family, and my father was one of 11 children. And when you talk about a family that has that many, and he had so many aunts and uncles himself, it was a lot on his dad's side, a lot on his mom's side. But when we look at that the new generation of people that was there at that Super Bowl party, when I talk about my family, we talk about something that was in the title that I got here. Um, we talk about that word DNA, and in that family structure, we got to see as we were growing up and going involved there. You get to see the DNA of the people that's the brothers and sisters of my father. When you're looking at your first cousins, everybody, all of us don't like to say as we grow up, we don't never want to say we like our family, like our mothers and our fathers. We always try to, sometimes we try to deny that, say, oh, I'm not like my mom, I'm not like my dad, I'm not like my uncle. But in some ways, we have that DNA. And if we have that DNA, it's going to show. It may show in some of your mannerisms. It may show in some of the stuff that you do well, and you don't even understand why you do well at it. It may show in some how you handle certain things. It may show how you look. It may show you how you talk. Some people tell me when I speak, I sound just like my father. And I always try to admit, say, I mean, I don't sound like my dad, but people used to talk to me on the telephone and say they thought that I was my father. And my father had talked to people, they thought he was him. Thought that my father was me. So, and my aunt, when she was here, um, you know, my aunt Betty Ann, when she was here, she used to tell me, say, when my father passed away, she wanted to talk to me because it's like talking. Hearing my voice is like hearing my father. So that's DNA. And when I watch football is that, as Coach Marv has always told you, football is relative to sports. Sports is relative to life. And in my title, I said NFL teams DNA. Each of these organizations, man, these NFL teams, they got DNA. And if you go back and research teams and you watch teams and you know a lot, all these new breed people, these new breed commentators and people who are out here in the streets and they watch football. Everybody wants to say football is man different now. It's a passing league. It's nothing different. It's totally different. There's nothing the same about football. But let's think about it. When you go back into history and you look and when you watch teams, that's what I say. If you're a fan of a team, you must know your history of your football team. Don't just start your history, your fandom of today. If you're a fan of a team, go back and look at their history. And when you find, and most times when you go back and look at the history of a football team, basketball team, baseball team, you will see a certain DNA, even though the ownership has changed, there's a certain DNA to that team. It's a certain thing that they're always successful with, or that it's always been a negative to them. Some people call it a stigma, some people call it a mark, but it's a DNA thing. And as I watched the Super Bowl unwind, as I sat there and watched, all my cousins and see that my aunts and my uncles through them, and I watched the Super Bowl, I watched two teams. I watched the New England Patriots. I thought about their DNA and I thought about how their team was made up this year. And how was their team made up this year? Their team looks really similar to the team. Hey, Jen. But didn't New England team look similar to the team that Belichick started off with? Very physical defense. Guys coming from the unknown area, guys they picked up. Because remember, if we go back to the Belichick years, they picked up some guys in the free agents when he was trying to build that team. Guys that was not the top name free agents, but guys that he put that were fits. Not what people talked about, but what fit them. Great cornerback in Gonzalez. I think they had a great cornerback back then that went on to be a Hall of Famer. I can't remember his name. If somebody in the chat remembers his name, good safety play, great linebacker play, very physical football team defensively. And offensively, they had a quarterback that was young. Didn't ask him to put up gaudy numbers. They had a decent running game. Had decent wide receivers, but they spread the ball around. But they won because I'm talking about Brady's first years. They won because they were very smart. They played very smart football. They didn't turn the ball over. They did all the little things right. Now, if you're a historian of football, you know if you look at the Patriots early on, you see that DNA that their coach came back, Brable came back and said, I'm going back to the DNA that has made this team successful for 6 Super Bowls. And it started with Bill Parcells, the same DNA. That DNA started and got the same defense, very opportunistic on offense, nothing flashy, not actually a quarterback to do too much, very physical defense. And I think back to my good friend Mike Jones, a guy named Mike Jones. Mike Jones is the Coco Jones' father. Me and him played high school football together. And he went on to play in North Carolina State and played 11 years in the NFL. And he played with the Patriots. Matter of fact, when the Patriots went to the Super Bowl, when they played Green Bay under Bill Parcells, he was a captain. Yes. That DNA that Bill Parcells started, they didn't win, but was successful. Belichick, when he got the job, he brought that same DNA to the Patriots. He was there. He just kept that DNA, and they built on that DNA of being, because that's what they got their only success. They started their success with Bill Parcells with that DNA. And yes, that DNA after that it evolves, but what they do basic never changed. They may have went to passing about, but the way that they go about their work and what they lean upon never really changed. Yeah, you can fiddle with it in certain areas, but the basis of who you are is never going to change. You could change if you're a person, you could change your hairstyle, you could change this and that, whatever, but you're not going to change the roots of who you are. That's DNA. So when I watched the Patriots, that's what I saw. I saw Brable get his team back to the DNA that made the Patriots successful. All the way back to Bill Parcells. Now, does that mean that you're going to win a Super Bowl? No. But it's going to put you in the hunt. And getting into a Super Bowl, yes, I know people talking about it's a win or nothing that, but still, yeah, that's a bit. They walk away with some championships this year. They walk away with a AFC East championship. They walk away with a AFC championship. There's a lot of teams that walk away with nothing. Then I look at Seattle. Seattle has had success. They had success when they played Pittsburgh back in the day. And people remember when they played Pittsburgh back in the Super Bowl with Pittsburgh won, they had a great running game then. I think Alexander was the running back then. They had a quarterback that was good, but didn't act for it. He was okay, but he wasn't all world. And they had a good defense then. When Pete Carroll came, he went back to the DNA that got them to the Super Bowl the first time under Mike Holmgren. And when they went to the Super Bowl with Russell Wilson, dominant defense, good running game, explosive passing game down the field or certain thing, but not dominating with the pass, a good balanced offense, but they dominate on defense. And after they did that run with Seattle, with the Legion of Boom, and it kind of faded away because they got away from it because they went to say we need to let Russell cook. And they got away from building their defense. And they went all these other ways because people were saying that you got to be explosive in the offense. And they went to throwing the ball. They went away from the running game. They didn't have no success. The Pete Carroll got out of there. And guess what Mac McDonald did? He saw the DNA of how they were successful back when Mike Holmgren was coach. And he got his Seattle Seahawks back to their DNA of what always made them successful. And it cultivated in the Super Bowl victory. With the same DNA structure that they were 25 some years ago with Mike Hogan. If anybody remember when Mike Hogan was coach, that's when they went to Super Bowl. Exact same DNA. Now some things may change here that we can't even name the quarterback when Mike Hogan was there. But Alexander was there running the ball. And they had a pretty good defense. That was the DNA. Well, so some people say, well, coach, what you mean by DNA? Well, everybody changes, the coaches change. But organizations have a DNA that makes them successful. And it sticks with them. We say, coach, give me some more examples of that. Well, let's look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Do people remember when the Kansas City Chiefs won back in the 60s? I probably don't know, but when they won the Super Bowl back, they had Tex Stram as a coach, and he was an innovative offense. And then they had four guys on that, or I think 3 or 4 guys on that Kansas City defense that were Hall of Famers. But they were so innovative with their offense, quick, did a lot of stuff. They were known for being very innovative with the offense. Didn't the coach get back to their DNA to make them successful? Don't that sound like the Kansas City Chiefs that went to 3 or 4 Super Bowls? We said, coach, give me another example. Let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers. We said, coach, they ain't win no Super Bowl, but let's talk about how they got to the Super Bowl. If people want to remember the Joe Montana years, they don't understand that Ronnie Lott and some Hall of Fame, should be Hall of Fame defensive players was on those. Everybody want to talk about Jerry Rice, but there were some dominating defensive players on that team. But let's go back to somewhere they didn't win Super Bowl. Let's go back to the Harbaugh, the other Harbaugh that came from Michigan, the one now is coaching at the Chargers. Do we remember he got to San Francisco to 3 or 4 NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl, Cup Super Bowl, right? With great linebackers, dominate defense, and a quarterback that would run the ball, but they were known for having a great offense. They were known for having a great defense. Didn't Shottenham come and do the exact same thing, build that team the exact same way? And got to the Super Bowl with what's the guy that left that's no longer there and people talk trash about it? Didn't he do that same thing? What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Great, this is a great show. Please listen, like, comment, subscribe to this, and share this. Because this is not no lies, no in the windows. This is the truth. DNA is really important when you come to football and in all other sports. Let's talk about another team I don't like. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. If Trey, if you're watching, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Don't you know Pittsburgh has never played in the Super Bowl without a top 3, a top 1? They're either defense number 1, 2, or 3 in the league. Don't you know they never played in the Super Bowl, or definitely not won a Super Bowl without having a top 3 defense? I don't care what Roethlisberger had. I don't care what receiver that they have never done it. That's in the 70s, the 90s, all the way to it. We don't get what it was. They have never done it. Don't you know they have never won a Super Bowl? Even when they had that Super Bowl they won that year with Roethlisberger threw that touchdown pass without a top 10 running game. Don't y'all know that? That's Pittsburgh's DNA. I don't care what year they go, what coach it is, that's their DNA. So you said, well, coach, man, what is the Cowboys DNA? That's why you got to study your history of your football team. That's why if you see some posts that I made, some posters of some videos of certain players, it does not say, and I always say, know your team, know your Cowboys, know your history, know your history of your Cowboys. Let me give you a tidbit of this history of your Cowboys. They have never won a Super Bowl without a top 8 defense. And 3 or 4 of the Super Bowls they won, they had the #1 defense. They have never won a Super Bowl without having a top 5 running game. They won most of their Super Bowls with 2 Hall of Fame running backs. They have never won a Super Bowl. None of their quarterbacks winning the Super Bowl had the most yards in the season throwing. Danny White did. I think Tony Romo might have too. They didn't win Super Bowl. Roger Staubach never did. And Troy Aikman never did. Well, you can tell me, say, well, things have changed, but if that's your DNA, and let's look at, and I have tried to tell people this comparison, and it's so eerie that in the 70s they had one great wide receiver and some other good wide receiver because Tony Hill used to be on that team with us in the 70s. They had some other guy that had a good tight end with Billy Joe Dupree. They had the running back out of the backfield, Preston Pearson. They were good, but one great wide receiver, but had a top offense. And so on whole, he was 88. The great running back was double um 2-2. But they had a running back when they won their first championship that ran, that was an outstanding running back. What was the name? I had the name in my mind, but his number was number 33. Ooh. And he had a dispute with the Cowboys organization, and he didn't speak to the media because Cowboys DNA is also giving their players hard time to get their pay. That's been since back in the 60s, in the 70s. Listen, they've been doing this contract dispute in Dallas when back in the 70s. Thomas, thank you. And you know the story about Thomas. He was worried about he couldn't get his money. That's the Cowboys DNA. Making their players go work for their money. That's the Cowboys DNA, people. This is nothing new. If you know the history, if you go back and research your history of your Cowboys organization, you will see that that's not new. They always gave their star players problems of getting their money. So this, hey man, this guy right here is a Cowboy fan, and he can tell you that I'm not telling you no joke. He can tell you that I ain't telling you no joke. Thomas was their running back when they won their first Super Bowl, and he was a dominating running back in the playoffs. He didn't talk to the media because he wanted to be traded. They traded him, and they had to bring it back and rescind the trade because they didn't pay him. He had to leave. He got screwed up by Tex Graham. And I'm going to say this. All the black players that played in the 70s, ask them, go back and look at the articles. They always had problems in getting their money. Butch Johnson and Tony Hill were outstanding receivers. They were complimentary when Drew Pearson was the man. And when Drew Pearson left, Tony Hill became a star. Tony Hill should be one of the great wide receivers in Cowboys history. But the only reason Tony Hill don't get the credit he got because he played with Danny White. And Danny White never won a Super Bowl, but Danny White had better passing stats than Roger Staubach. They have always been screwing players over. So some of you fans that just came along in the 30 years and don't know the history of the Cowboys, research your history. And you will see it just ain't the Joneses. It's the Dallas DNA of ownership. What else is Dallas DNA? We've always been the most popular team in the NFL. Now, some people say, "Well, coach, oh, there you go bragging." That ain't that's the truth. We've been on every Thursday. They put the Cowboys on Thursday. The Cowboys have always been had the media, the radio stations, the station, all this. Always been a controversial. This ain't nothing new. I'm not bragging. I'm telling the truth. If you really understand it, you know. They call them America's team. Why? Why they call them America's team? People say they call them America's team. They think everybody likes them. No, they call them America's team because the Cowboys are the most polarizing franchise in sports. Let me explain to you what polarizing means. Polarizing means that's the level you get judged of popularity. The guy in the presidency right now, regardless if we like him or not, he's popular because he's polarizing. What polarizing means? Either they love you or they hate you. There is no in between. You either at one end of the pole or the other end of the pole. I can say the Atlanta Falcons and know what y'all say. Some of y'all will say, "Oh, I don't know. They are." I guarantee you, I can get 100 people and say, "What you feel about Dallas?" And they're gonna either give me a 10 or a 0. That's what your popularity does. Because just as many people who like them, it's just as many people who hate them. That's what makes them popular. Because the haters are gonna watch so they can see them fail, and the ones that love them gonna watch to make them. And you never, it's not gonna be anybody left out. That's why they're America's team. That's why their ratings go through the roof because of the haters and the people who love them. Because there is no in between. No, I'm not gonna say, oh, we the American team because everybody love us and we ain't nothing better than the Cowboys. No, because I'm smart enough to understand they're a better team because they're polarizing. So if you want to know the DNA of the Cowboys, they have always been polarizing since day one. What's another part of the DNA of the Cowboys? They have never won, and I'm about to upset some people because somebody gonna say, "Well, coach, that we ain't in DNA." They have never won without a defensive-minded head coach. Oh Lord, I'm about to really make some people mad. Not yeah, because they're gonna say Schottenheimer ain't no deep. He ain't no. That's. I'm just gonna be honest. Jimmy Johnson is a defensive-minded coach. That's where he started out. That's his forte. Tom Landry was a defense stalwart, innovative on offense, but his thing was defense. When he coached with the Baltimore, before he got the Cowboys, defense was his thing. They have never won without a defensive-minded head coach. Duh. So when somebody says defense win championships, that has always been their forte. Everybody think it's been offense, but that's their DNA, defense. What's another DNA of the Cowboys on their Super Bowl victories? Bob Lilly got MVP of the defense. The Cowboys has got the most defensive MVPs in any other team in NFL history in the Super Bowl. If you don't know your history, tell me something. I'm telling you history. The Cowboys got more defensive MVPs in the Super Bowl history than any other team, and they got more defensive MVPs than they got offensive MVPs in the 5 Super Bowls that they won. Come on, talk to me. Bob Lilly was the defensive MVP at defensive tackle when they beat the Miami Dolphins. No, they beat Baltimore with one of the greatest defense performances of a Super Bowl, almost. They had co-defensive MVPs the year they won in '77 with Harvey Martin and Randy White. Duh. And then Larry Brown got defensive MVP in their last Super Bowl. We got more defensive MVPs in the Super Bowl than it. Matter of fact, we might have all of them. With all the Roger Staubachs, the the Drew Pearsons, the Tony Dorsetts, the Emmett Smiths, the Michael Irvins, the Troy Aikmans, in our illustrious history of the Cowboys organization, in 3 of our Super Bowls, we had 4 guys. 2 of them were co-defensive MVP, not co-MVPs. In 5 Super Bowls, 3 of them, 4 guys won MVP of the Super Bowl, and they came from the defense. I bet you some of y'all don't even realize that history, do you? So what that's telling you the DNA of your Dallas Cowboys is? Is it the triplets? Is it Roger Staubach? Is it Troy Aikman? Your real DNA is doomsday, and in the 90s, you were the dominating defense. And when you won your first Super Bowl, nobody scored against you with Bob Lilly in there. Your real DNA of an organization is having a dominating defense and a quality run game, and makes your passing game looks explosive. That's your DNA. And every time you get back to your DNA, like when the Seattle got back to their DNA, like the Patriots got back to their DNA, every time you get back to your DNA, you become successful. And every time somebody tell your DNA something else and you try to do it some other way, you fail. Yeah, when we lost, we lost in that Super Bowl. What Super Bowl we lost to? The Pittsburgh Super Bowl? Because Bob Lilly won the first one, right? When we beat Denver, Randy White and Harvey Martin, which should be in the Hall of Fame, were co-defensive MVPs. Then Larry Brown was the defensive MVP against the Pittsburgh. We got all the defensive MVPs most of them. So what that tells you about our DNA? I bet you there's football fans, Dallas Cowboy fans, and I would say there's people that's watching this right now. And who's the guy that won the defensive MVP against Baltimore? Because I know in Miami, Bob Lilly won. And if that's the case, I bet you there's Cowboy fans that's listening to this thing right now that's gonna go across this internet right now that can't tell me that. And I want to make sure this is short. Riverside, make this a short. The Dallas Cowboy DNA is defense. We have the most defensive MVPs in NFL Super Bowl history. Chuck Howard was the defensive MVP when we lost the Super Bowl with the Baltimore Colts. Bob Lilly was the Super Bowl MVP when we beat the Miami Dolphins with a dominating defense performance. Randy White and Harvey Martin was co-defensive MVPs when we killed the Orange Crush in '77. And Larry Brown was the defensive MVP when we beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. We dominate Super Bowl history with defensive MVPs. So tell us, while we're talking about going out here about passing game, what is our DNA, people? It ain't quarterback. Our DNA is a dominating defense and quality running game, because we have never played in a Super Bowl without a top 8 defense. And we have never won a Super Bowl without a top 1 or 2 defense. And we have never played a Super Bowl without a top 5 running game. Get back to your DNA, and then I guarantee you there's success. So many people out here, when they grow up, they have certain skill levels that is the DNA fabric of their family base. And they catch it on easily. They got a knack for certain things. That's why some people go back in their roots and they trace their roots back to find out what is their family was famous for. Because that's embedded in their DNA. And you find out we have so many people that try to change what they're good at because they try to deny what they're really good at, and they go around and they flounder trying to be successful. And football organizations that get back to their DNAs, I can tell you one DNA the Cowboys that got back to, messing over their players with contracts. They were doing that in the 60s. They were doing that in the 70s. Learn your history. Go back and see what the Drew Pearsons and the Harvey Martins and the Two Charles Jones and all that. Two Charles Jones quit football because he couldn't get a contract. He went to boxing because he had a contract dispute. Listen, this ain't just started. Bob Lilly got his money though. Brandon White got his. The contract stuff ain't started. Ain't started this now. Tex Graham was just the same as Jerry Jones when it comes about, yeah, bragging about when they got the money and trying to lowball people. This ain't just started. Know your history. I guarantee you learn your history, you will say, man, we got to stop doing certain things or we got to do certain things to be successful. We got 90% of the defensive MVPs of Super Bowls that came from Dallas Cowboys. That's our DNA, people. That's our DNA. Now let me think. Let's talk about DNA of the Super Bowl champion. Don't you know in the last 5 years the Super Bowl champion has been a top 5 defense? Don't you know last year the Eagles finished the year in what? The top defense? Don't you know who finished with the top defense this year? Seattle. Don't you know 2 years ago, with the 2 years that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, they were the top 5. I think that 1 year was top 3, top 5. And you know, don't you know the Chiefs ranked number 1 in not giving up big plays in defense the 2 years they won back-to-back Super Bowls? Don't you know the Chiefs won their second Super Bowl? Let me tell you this now. The second Super Bowl they won before the Eagles beat them. KC. Don't you know that they didn't score a touchdown in the second half in 6 games that year? No, the Kansas City offense didn't score a touchdown in 6 games the year they won the back-to-back Super Bowl. Don't you know the Kansas City offense with Mahomes in the AFC Championship game the year before they won championship against Baltimore, right? Don't you know that they didn't score a point in the second half and won the game on the road? They did with defense. Don't you know the Rams, when they talk about all that stuff, when they won with Cooper Kupp, don't you know the Rams, when they had the guy wanted to be defensive coordinator, the one that got hired by San Francisco, he was the defensive coordinator at the Rams when they won their last Super Bowl. Don't you know that they were the number 1 defense in the league that year? And all y'all talk about, I'm going to get to what y'all talk about, which don't make no sense. Because it's in your face what dominates the team to win championships. Georgia, every year got top defense. number one defense in the league, one of the number one defense in Indiana. Oregon was number defense. If you look at the college top teams in the college playoff, none of them are like 1, 2. They're all in the top 5 in defense. And I gave you the DNA of the Cowboys. But let me tell you something that really makes me sick. We worried about paying Pickens and having two $30 million wide receivers. And we come here this year. And how many more games did that win us? And I'm watching teams that got one guy and the guy that's playing well. They playing for the Super Bowl. And we got an organization from the pressure of his own fan base that's going to franchise tag the second best receiver on his team. You tell me where that makes sense at. And I know some of you gonna say, "Well, coach don't like Pickens." No, I love Pickens. I love Pickens. But if I was the ownership, I had a certain price. It wouldn't be a low ball price. It would be a good price, maybe a Devontae Smith type price. And I will allow him to search whoever he want to search. And I would say, give me the opportunity to match. Because I bet you any amount of money in this world that there's some other guys that could be a veteran star second wide receiver that would love to play with Dak Prescott that he see what he did with Pickens. Duh. And they get to play beside CeeDee Lamb and get that. Duh. And they won't cost $30 million. But our fan base is so wrapped up, we don't want to see that because we got this ego about, because we got people out there that's not Cowboy fans say, y'all gonna sign Pickens, y'all gonna let him go. And we buying into that. And we don't even understand that we can do good with somebody else. Because this is what I'm saying. This ain't no dispute with Pickens, because he understands the same shit. If CeeDee Lamb ain't out 5 games, he don't have 93 receptions and 1,400 yards. And this is not even a discussion. I got some my country that called him a number 1. When I got guys that getting that type of money, like Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Chase, guys that have put work in multiple years, regardless of who the quarterback was. And now I got a guy that made and we're pushing it that, hey man, get him man, sign him long term, pay him big money. No other team doing this. Because I can tell you this, build your defense up, and you don't even need Pickens. The offense you got would look at, because I'm watching teams stand for the laboratory without it. But something in our mind tells us that and then I hear this, and this is the craziest stuff in the world. And we fall for this. Oh, the interviewer said, people in the organization said, uh, we got word that they're interviewing these defensive coordinators and these guys are defensive coordinators, and they're talking about, oh man, how much we was a nightmare to prepare for with Pickens and Lamb. And y'all believe that shit. And then when it got down to us scoring and being efficient, sometimes when we need to score in the second half in some games and we got shut down, they was on the field then. I guess they did a good job of preparing. But I know I'm gonna get blackballed. I don't want Pickens. No. Good teams was have a cost already assigned. Listen, and this and I'll go back to this again. I said this later. Billionaire organizations, all these NFL teams, got people working numbers for them 24/7, 7 days a week. They already got a board that projects out. They already know what the salary cap is going to be, probably to almost a penny, where the salary cap is going to be in 2035. Yeah. They, when they're announced to you, they already know. Y'all act like, oh, they're getting the news with everybody else. They are, listen, they're not going blind. They already know what the revenue base is, what the salary cap going to be from this year. They already know that because when they did a collective bargaining agreement, when you do a collective bargaining agreement, there's projections that you have to put out there revenue wise before the owners and the players can make an agreement. Nobody's making an agreement on blindness. Second thing is, they already know what their budget is. They already know how they can fit this contract and what they know they can pay on this contract and that contract. You don't think they ain't trying to figure that out and got that? So they got a number in their head that they can go up to already with Pickens. Cut out the drama, talk to his people, put the number on the board. Cut the distractions out. Stop playing about it. Because when you put a franchise tag on it, that makes the player mad. Why does that make the player mad? Anybody in the chat can tell me why that makes the player mad? Because when you put a franchise tag on a player, you're doing what he doesn't like you to do because you are now restricting his access to shop himself around to bidders. You're actually hindering him to be a free agent. Now there is no competition about what somebody else may pay you. So now you're at the beck and call of the team negotiating with you when you don't have no other suitor. In this case, let the market be set by these other teams out here. And if he wants to go to New Orleans because they want to pay him $33 million a year, and we're offering him 25, 26 with a little bit of better structure, and he wants to go there when he ain't got no quarterback, he ain't playing with CD Lamb, he ain't playing on the big stage of Dallas, let his ass go. Because I guarantee you can get another guy for 15 that say, hey man, I want that opportunity. I guarantee you can get Flonos and get more catches, and you can make up that production. I guarantee you get your defense. You don't need two guys making kicking for 1,400 yards. Do the Patriots have one? The Eagles and look here. The Eagles and the Kansas City last year played a Super Bowl with 1,000-yard receiver last year, and that was AJ Brown. The Kansas City didn't even have 1,000-yard receiver the year before. The year they lost, and Devontae Smith only had 800 some yards. They had less yards last year. The Eagles' offensive receivers had less yards last year, and they had a better offense and won a Super Bowl. Their receivers had over 1,000 yards apiece this year, and they couldn't even get an offensive possession. So y'all think get 2 wide receivers gonna make you know what it's gonna do? It's gonna make y'all excited. They say we got those guys out there. And you know we're gonna end up being the Cincinnati Bengals. All flash, no defense, sitting home. Every game is down to a shootout. Every game is a shootout. And guess what you do? Guess what most quarterbacks, the greatest of quarterbacks, know what they win? Know how many they win in shootouts? 4 out of every 10 games. And you're gonna ask your quarterback to be a miracle worker every week. And y'all think that's gonna win. And your DNA says that's not how you win. Your DNA says you win defensively. Check your history. But Jerry and them ain't checking the history because they going on what we're talking about. Listen here. I'll say something about Pickens in the last 2 shows. You ain't gonna hear me say nothing else about it. If you want to be here, you want to be here. But I know we can find another guy. We found him. Did we? Now, this guy might not agree with. He might be watching my show. Somebody might give it, and I'm giving credit. He might not like what I'm about to say. He may not be agreeing with me. But both Cowboys brought you 3 or 4 receivers that if they were here with the opportunity to pick this guy, they would have put up big numbers. Duh. If we franchise tag him, we're doing the misjustice to this team. We are not, and the only reason we're doing that is because of the fan base. But see, the fan base will understand we go and we negotiate with a guy and give him a decent contract offer, and then that shit's fall when they make. But that DNA, I bet you don't. I bet you some of y'all Cowboy fans don't even know that. What's going on, TZ? Who? I bet you y'all Cowboy fans, y'all, and don't take this as a diss. You can't call yourself a Cowboy fan. You don't know your history. When you look at the DNA of your team, and I tell you, thank you so much, man, for the super chat, man. Appreciate it. First $10, say, is the defense I wish that chat that don't come up on my screen. But the super chat is defense was at least a top 16. We would be no, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't. No. 16 ranked defenses ain't winning Super Bowls. If you got a 16, 17 ranked defense, that's on, you know most of that's coming on lowly offenses. When you play against a good offense, it get destroyed. Defense, when you go in there, listen, and this is what I don't want, and I'm not trying to down you, but this is what I'm trying to say to you, right? That's the philosophy I don't want us to go into it this year. Because see, we go on this philosophy saying, man, we just got to get our defense somewhat better. You know what it's gonna be? Horrible. Our DNA has never went in and our defense said, well, we had Drew Pearson. We had some of the #1 ranked offenses in the history of sports with Tom Landry, with the Cowboys. And we have never won or played in a Super Bowl without a top 8 defense, and we have never won one without a top 1 or 2 defense. So all this stuff saying, man, we got enough offense, just get okay. And guess what okay gonna get us? This defense gotta have the philosophy that we're gonna dominate. Okay is not gonna get it. Because this is what I'm saying. When we start having people talk about this being okay, you know what okay is gonna be? Okay against the sorry teams. And then we read a team that got a good defense and a good offense, their defense gonna slow our offense down. Because guess what I tell you? When we play the better defenses, we don't score 30-some points, do. Because regardless of what you got over there with Pickens and Lamb and all that, they got guys over there. I guess you won't be scoring 30 points a game against Denver. I guess you won't be scoring 30 points. I bet you we played Seattle last year. We won't be putting, I don't care if you had Pickens or Lamb and all that. We could probably put up some points. But if we couldn't stop them, they're going to dominate. Great defense stop great offense. That's why the guys that's coming, winning, they make the offense look good because they're not stressed. But we say that, our fan base look over there and look crazy. But I tell you this, go ask your fellow Cowboy fans if they don't know that the Cowboys got the most defensive MVPs of the Super Bowls. They got the only defensive MVP, a guy that was a defensive MVP that was on a losing Super Bowl team in Chuck Howley. They have a defensive MVP in their first Super Bowl with Bob Lilly in a dominating defensive performance. They got co-defensive MVPs of Super Bowl, co-MVP defensive ends, defensive MVPs of the 77 Super Bowl when they blew out the Denver Broncos. They should have been the defense. Listen, the year that we won 57-17, we should have defensive MVP. We should have 4 or 5 guys because we scored more touchdowns than the offense. Duh. And Larry Brown got defensive MVP against Pittsburgh. What is our DNA then? It ain't offense with all these great Hall of Famers y'all talking about. When it comes to money games, we dominate with what? I bet you ain't gonna have no content creators gonna talk about that. What I'm talking about today. We're gonna be talking about George Pickens, signing George Pickens and being so explosive on offense that we could be okay on defense. And our DNA is defensive. Get that straight. And we got enough offense to win. That could be better suited for it. It's showing you what teams are winning lately. The top defense was in the top visited games. Most of those guys, most of the defense was in the top defenses in the NBA MVP. Listen here, the Titans, the Texans were in a game away from being in the NFC Championship game and dominating the Patriots on the defensive end, and their quarterback was playing like garbage the 2 playoff games, but they still had a chance to win the game. I come to you, fan base. Get off this Pickens thing. Get on getting this defense right. If that's what they want to do, don't franchise tag a guy that come with a price. Get your running back situation handled. Get you another running back in here as well. get you a quality running game with two good running backs, and you don't listen here. You don't need two $30 million wide receivers to beat. You know what that is? Y'all saying that because y'all won't bling. And in some aspects, some of y'all is just as bad as Jerry and them. They have converted you to think that you need bling to win. Because if you do it with defense, know what some of y'all gonna say? Oh man, we don't need no Dak Prescott. That's what I said. What's tell you now? That's your DNA. You got this organization's DNA is defense. When it came to the biggest games that this organization has played in the history of this organization, they have never dominated on offense. They did it on defense. Three of their five Super Bowl victories, they didn't even have offensive MVPs. They had defensive MVPs, and one of them they had code. Two of them were two guys that were defensive MVP. And in one of the Super Bowls they lost out of the 8 times, I think the 8 times they've been to the Super Bowl, which is close to the team to be in the most Super Bowls. Out of eight times they win, they had a defensive MVP of the game, and he didn't even win the Super Bowl. And in one of those games that they got defensive MVP when we won 57-17, we scored just as many defensive touchdowns as we scored offense. So what that tells you what our DNA is. Seattle got back to their DNA and they won a Super Bowl. The Patriots got back to their DNA and got back to the Super Bowl. Kansas City got back to their DNA from the 60s and made another run. Pittsburgh has never got to the Super Bowl without top three defense. And every year, I don't care how great Ben Roethlisberger was, how great it was, and they have never got to the Super Bowl without having a great defense and a quality run game. I don't care how much Roethlisberger threw the ball around, had Brown and all that. If the defense went up to par, their DNA, that's their DNA. You say DNA is not the same in sports? The Lakers won most of their championship with Big Simmons. Kobe Bryant, the only one that broke that thing, and maybe, but when they won again with LeBron James, Anthony Davis was a dominating guy, and he played center that year. There's a DNA in sports, man. And you know something? They spent 300. You said they spent $300 million in free agents. But I guarantee you, some of the greatest, best players that they had on that team were drafted guys and guys that came up. Their safety, they didn't spend no money on him. They ain't spend drafting their great wide receiver. The MVP running back, they didn't spend no money on him. Still yet, homegrown drafted players was the dominant guys on that team. But here's what everybody gonna say: how much money they spent, and then they spend money on people that everybody they say, oh, they spend money on guys that fit and they fit their role, and they raise the level of guys that play. Again, You got another Super Bowl champion with secondary guys that were rookies that nobody thought that they were going to be dominant. And we think we can't change our secondary with a rookie or two. That's 2 years in a row that rookies have been dominating guys in the secondary, and nobody thought that they were going to be dominant when they were drafted. And Kansas City did it 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Check the records. They had 3 rookies starting the year they won back-to-back Super Bowl. And we think we need veterans. And people doing it right in our face. But we said we need veterans. Thank you so much, Steve Jones. Free agencies and draft up. First of all, we cannot tell, and that's that's a great super chat. Thank you so much, super chat. First of all, we cannot say what the draft needs are defensively. I'm not worried about offense defensively because of the fact we don't know exactly the direction that we are going defensively. I see a 3-4 defense we're going. So yes, they're gonna look. They're gonna try to get another linebacker in here. But I really believe if Parker is who I think he is, he's gonna try to build that team off. He got enough veteran guys on his defense. He's gonna try to build this off his draft. He was a defensive secondary coach of a team that won a Super Bowl with 2 drafted guys that went on to play for the Eagles, and they won a Super Bowl. And one of those drafted guys was a rookie, made a key interception. The slot cornerback. When they drafted these guys, nobody saw and said, "Oh, these guys gonna be #1 drafted." They won with guys that they drafted, and guys and another guy that they brought up that was there before. If they came in here saying that they want guys taught, you don't have to go out. You got guys on your team that can play. This team is not void of talent. It's void of leadership. It's void of a losing mentality. They got that. And you're gonna have to solidify. But if there's one thing that I would say that we need, if you want to talk just general, safety is the point. And if Caleb Downs is the best safety on the board, let me give you another tidbit. This defense ain't never had a dominating defense without a dominating safety. Go back in the history and look at that too. You ain't gonna be able to do it with just guys. You need guys that want that playmakers. And we go 3-4. I ain't gonna say I already know. I got a very good thing who's going to be your outside linebackers in that 3-4. One you already got, number 41. He's already there. The other one, 8-0, will be a perfect outside linebacker. Then you ain't got to put him in coverage. I don't think he's a very good coverage guy, but I do know he plays well going forward. And you probably can save his legs by him playing outside and not in that traffic. And I think the Cowboys see outside linebacker in him already. I think they see outside linebacker in both of those guys. If they go 3-4, I think they're going 3-4 because of those 2 guys. And if they go 3-4, Cosby don't work in this defense. And to give up draft picks to get Cosby would be a drastic mistake. I would not. You got a good enough defensive lineman. Again, that's another position that's overrated. Anyway, that's Bling, man. We're going after Bling. So that's what I would say when we talk about draft. But if you wanted something else, I think we should go with we need speed on defense. Our defense is entirely too slow. I need my safety room to be bigger and faster. Now, that's asking a lot, but I need size in my safety room and I need speed. I need size and physicality in my safety room, and I need speed. I need speed on this defense. This defense in the back end was very slow. So that means if our cornerback is not fast, we need to get some burners. We got to increase the speed on this defense. And without saying we got to increase the physicality. I believe that this coach staff is going to increase the physicality because of their being being with their reputation of being fundamentally sound. And fundamentally sound in defense, there is no such thing as a finesse defense. If you're a finesse player, you can't play defense football. There ain't no such thing as that. Not even criteria. Very slow, and we need physicality. We straighten those two things out, we're gonna improve our defense greatly. Then add a mentality with it. We got to make it. I believe what Quentin Williams says. Quentin Williams sees that its potential is in that room. But I see that what's up, Coach Fowler? I see a 3-4. Man, I think the 3-4 is coming. Listen, man, they go 3-4. Coach Fowler, his son would be a perfect person to be in that rotation as the outside linebacker. But I see number 41 and age 0 being ready made for outside linebacker in a 4-3 because the defensive tackles and all that inside will be dominant with the rotation. You bring back Pounding, Clark, Osa, Quinn Williams. You put those number 41 and age, and then you let age 0, number 0, get out of that middle and start playing going forward. And number 41, his technique is just he's selling to be linebacker. Yeah, I really do believe. But you got to improve the safety position because in the 3-4, your safeties are gonna go be stars. If you have it in the 3-4, y'all, if your safeties are not trying to be stars, they're not football. They're not who you want on the team. Yeah, that and those are gonna be your two starting outs. They're gonna get those two guys because I believe they see, and I ain't got no word on this, but this is what I see. I see the Mario Omashon as an outside linebacker. I don't think he plays. I think he's okay in the middle linebacker, but on the outside, him going forward, he can dominate. And I know number 41 can dominate on the outside. He's a green star. And they're gonna be protected by those two dogs that they're gonna have on those 5 eye techniques. Yeah. And in the 4-3, then you're asking your middle linebackers just to control the middle. And everything else is gonna be brought back to them. So you got to have, but and you're gonna have some backup guys. And this is but putting them on the outside is gonna help his health thing. That's gonna preserve him more with him being on the outside and out of that trash in there and get him to play forward. Will make him a whole lot better. Leopold got to get more discipline. That's all he got to do. But it's the collection of some of the parts. But y'all talking about linebackers. Linebackers and safety work hand in hand. Give me a good set of both of them, and they make each other better. But if you got to have linebackers, you got to have safeties that want to be stars. Because if they go into 3-4 and that's their base, it's tailor-made for safeties to be stars. I'm going to say that again. It's tailor-made for safeties to be stars. Every 3-4 defense, there's been a historical defense, probably got Hall of Fame safeties. They probably close to being in the Hall of Fame. Check your history out on that. It's made for safeties to be stars. Because it gives them the freedom to do a lot of stuff. Palomaro had that freedom because he was in a 3-4. So, but recap what I was saying. Your DNA. Seattle got back to their DNA, running the football, solid defense, quarterback play. Okay, won them a Super Bowl. They tried to go away from their DNA, they was unsuccessful. They got back to their DNA, they got another Super Bowl. New England went back to their DNA. Physical defense. That defense was physical yesterday. But it had some plays on it. But the defense physical, quarterback can do certain things, but they're growing. Getting players that fit. They got back to their DNA. Kansas City got back to their DNA they had in the 60s. Cowboys get to their DNA. And it's not having George Pickens. And I'm not saying we don't need George Pickens. We don't want George Pickens. But it's not about having two $30 million wide receivers. In every big game in the Cowboys' history that we have dominated, we have won it basically on defense. We're the only team that got most of the MVP for the Super Bowl victories we got have been defensive players. Matter of fact, we're probably the only team that got an MVP of the Super Bowl that wasn't on the championship team, and he was a defensive player. Somebody brought that up. Chuck Allen got the defensive MVP when they played the Baltimore. We ain't want to win the team. Bob Lilly got the defensive MVP when we won our first Super Bowl against Miami. We had co-defensive MVPs when we when we blew out the Denver Broncos in '77. Harvey Martin and Randy White. And Larry Brown got the defensive MVP when we played the Pittsburgh. And our defense scored more touchdowns than our offense. Just about more touchdowns than our offense when we beat Buffalo 57-7. And then we had a great defensive performance when we won 30-13. What is our DNA as a football organization? It's defense. So if y'all want to talk about anything, tell me how this defense is going to get better before you start telling me about how much we're going to pay Pickens. But how many you can tell me is how we're going to have $30 million wide receivers and tell me how we're going to be so explosive that we can have an okay defense and be all right. I have never seen a team to go out and say we're going to be an okay defense and when big games came out, that okay turned out to be what we need to win a championship. Okay turned into getting 30 points on you. And then your explosive offense, where you played a great defense, like we did this year, regardless of how great our defense was. No, it wasn't. Do you remember when Brett Favre won the Super Bowl, how good that defense was? Go back and check that defense out. And the greatest show on turf, go check the year that they won the Super Bowl. Go check the years before that, before they got to the Super Bowl, and how bad it was. Matter of fact, the greatest show on turf, they played some great defensive games to shut the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down to get to the Super Bowl. Do you remember that? And you name those. If I got 60 Super Bowl championships, and you can name one or two, I always say this the other day. When I'm going, thank you. Wasn't Reggie White on that team? Didn't he improve that defense to another level? Woo! I tell you, man. and all those years before they got Reggie White, they couldn't win. You know how important the running game is? Denver was doing all that stuff until they got Davis. And then they started winning Super Bowl. One of the greatest offensive teams in the history of football. I don't even care what year they was in. Dan Fouts was throwing for 300 yards a game back when nobody was throwing. And he had 3 Hall of Fame wide receivers. And probably a running back that should have been in the Hall of Fame. And they never could sniff the Super Bowl because they couldn't play defense. All the years Dan Marino was good, he never had a defense. The years they had a defense, they didn't have a good quarterback, they won Super Bowl. There's more cases of defensive teams winning Super Bowls than Leroy Butler. I think Leroy Butler was one of the defensive MVPs. Yeah. So, and then Aaron Rodgers didn't win until they had a number 1 defense and had, like I said, man. There's more cases than a lot, man. Just get that straightened out first, and we'll be all right. But I know I'm fighting a losing battle. I know a lot of people say because we infatuated with this pick, and I'm saying I'm not saying that we don't want to sign. Yeah, it was better than just good. In the playoffs, they was outstanding. You remember? Listen, the year Brett Favre won the Super Bowl. Check this out. I want you to go back and look this up. They had the most rushing yards of any. Their running back, I think Dorsey Levens, had the most rushing yards of any running back in the playoff run. And when their defense was suffocating through the playoff run. But the Cowboys, I'm just saying for the Cowboys. Okay, there might be some other teams that might have done it. But the Cowboys never done that. And that's their DNA. Seattle ain't never sniffed a Super Bowl with a defense that was just okay. That's why they could get away with a Russell Wilson that was just, at that time, just being average. In beast mode. That's why they can get away with doing that. But hey, they pay dividends. They don't care if everybody say how great their offense was. Sam Donald don't care what y'all say about him. He got Super Bowl win. Trent Dilfer don't care what you say about him. He got a Super Bowl ring. So, hey, I got more super chats than I got in a long time, man. I got a lot of people that came in. But man, Coach Fowler, if you still listen, man, give me a holler sometime, man. I need to give you a holler. We gotta talk, man. See how things going, man. But listen, man, thank y'all so much for coming in. My cash app is down there on in the stream. I can put it up here in the show. Um, I know y'all sent me some super chats. I thank y'all so much for the super chats that came in. But if you want to support the channel, also you also can send with the Cash App and send a Cash App, man. That comes directly to me, and we won't have to go through all this stuff, crazy stuff with YouTube. But I appreciate you putting the a super chat in. I really appreciate. I appreciate all my fans that coming in, even the ones that may have not consistently come in. Some of the new ones that may have subscribed. Hopefully, some of my family members that I got to subscribe down in Alabama, they had notifications popped on and we came in. I know we talked about some Cowboy talk. And they probably said, "Boo, I don't want to hear nothing about that." But I just hope they came and supported it. We're going into the off season. There's some things I'm not, we're going to start talking about a little bit of draft stuff, but Coach Marv, Real Talk is going to start exploring into some other activities, some other things. We're going to maybe do a couple of basketball things. We're going to do some football things, but we're going to talk about sports and some other sports and stuff like that. We're going to talk about when we come up with the draft thing. We're also going to talk about some of the other sports. We're going to talk about some of these when March Madness comes up and some of these things about NFL, and then we're gonna have some topics about some stuff that's going on in sports because we're gonna try to explain our rise to let you know to say Coach Marv Real Talk talks about real issues, and we're gonna talk about real sports issues, and we're gonna branch off into some other things. But I want you to keep supporting, man, and I want you to understand. We're going back to what I said before: the DNA. Know your history of your Cowboys, and know that hey, man, our DNA has always been defense. With all these great superstars we have offense, it's always been defense. And if your DNA is where you get back to your DNA, and that's a very key to your success. I don't think some of y'all Cowboy fans know that y'all have had most of the defensive most of your Super Bowl victories have had defensive MVPs of the Super Bowl. Matter of fact, out of the players that have been defensive MVP, we got the majority of them. And we got the defensive MVP of a Super Bowl, defensive MVP of the Super Bowl that was a defensive guy on a losing team. That's how dominating we have been defensively in big games. So if we want to get back to being big, let's get back to the defense. I say that, man, but remember, as I always end my shows, no one or nothing can stop God's will. We're gonna be putting out some t-shirts. I will be in the next couple of weeks or 3 or 4 weeks. I'm gonna present the t-shirts on here online. I'm gonna load them up and I'm gonna show you online. And then we're gonna have people to say, hey, if you want to purchase a t-shirt, you're gonna inbox me. We're gonna tell you what the price of the t-shirt for the shipping and handling. We get that t-shirt out to you in a timely fashion. But the main one we're gonna is I'm always gonna say, first of all, first and foremost, defense is a weapon in Dallas. We're gonna put that mantra out there. We're gonna make sure they understand that I don't care about the Pickens weapon. I don't care about that. Defense is gonna be a weapon in Dallas. When teams come here, they're gonna say, man, we got to find out how we're gonna control that defense. That's is what I want them to do. Thanks again to James Goodley, 884 for his super chat, and Stephen Jones, man. Thank you so much for y'all super chat. Thank y'all so much for y'all support. Y'all always supporting the Coach Marv, and thank you so much, my lovely lady friend Ginger, for pointing that out in the chat, man. I really appreciate her greatly because like I said, you cannot do anything without having support tools. And she is my support tool, man. So again, remember, no one or nothing can stop God's will. No one or nothing can stop God's will. Remember that. Live off that, because that's the truth. Until next time, defense is a weapon in Dallas. Know your DNA. Check your history, Cowboy fans. Learn your history, and you'll know what we need to get back to be back on top. Check your history. Peace.